Good evening. It's Latasha Thomas, your worth coach and restoration strategist. Tonight's topic is freedom over failure. And so when I think of the first time I really felt a sense of freedom was when I packed my things up to go to college. I was so excited that I could be free from my parents' control. And it wasn't that I had a bad upbringing, but I was just super excited to be in my own space, to make my own decisions, right? And to be grown. I was ready. And I remember that first time when my parents drove off after dropping me off from school, and I was like, I have autonomy over me. I can make choices for myself, whether they be good or bad. And guess what? I'm responsible for them, but I feel good because I think I can make good choices. And so I just remember that sense of freedom, that sense of boldness, and that sense of jazz and, everything that sass that came out that week. That I was just so thrilled that I could be on my own. And I think sometimes that in life we can become bogged down with this sense of failure. We go through life as adults and we encounter different things that can sometimes challenge our feelings about ourselves. And when we live in a sense of freedom, we're in a sense of, like I said, making your own choices. You're not feeling imprisoned or enslaved. I think a lot of people also associate freedom from debt, freedom from heavy things that happen in your life, control over your time. I know a lot of the seminars that I've been in lately always talk about how entrepreneurs have control over their time, where I'm not clocking in my 9 to 5. I can make decisions. I can be present for my children. I can go where I want to go. I can take trips. People associate those types of things with freedom. Being liberated. I know when I feel like I'm in a space of freedom, in a space where I'm making autonomy over my choices, I'm creating boundaries that make sense, I have a tendency to be more creative. I have more creative flow that goes, and I have a sense of peace that accompanies that freedom. And so the reason I'm really going in depth about describing freedom to you is because I think we lose sight of what that sensation is. I think we get desensitized and we become hypersensitive to our failures. We begin to realize that I'm not doing this well enough, or I'm comparing myself. I recently read a post from one of my good friends who was talking about how during her birthday, she was just sitting there comparing all of her mistakes, all of her failures in this new chapter. This is supposed to be a great season of her life. And she's sitting there thinking and rehearsing over all of the mistakes that she's made. And I always tell my children that mistakes are proof that you're trying. It's okay to fail. It's okay to make a mistake or a misstep. It's just an opportunity for you to learn and for you to grow from those things. So don't shy away from encountering mistakes, and don't shy away from acknowledging your mistakes. So when I think about the word failure, it's always, such a doom and gloom type of word. The lack of success, the feeling that, you didn't get to do the expected action, whatever that case may be, you've been proven unsuccessful. Failure feels like proof that you are now unsuccessful. And I think that it becomes dangerous when we decide that we are going to accept that as our persona, that we're going to accept failure or proof that we're unsuccessful or an insufficiency in our actions or expectations as a part of who we are. There's a difference. There's a delineation between the fact that you are, that you have made a mistake, or you made a misstep, or you didn't accomplish the mission. There's a difference between that act and that behavior and that thought pattern and who you are as a person. I think sometimes we overanalyze and over-internalize the things that are not necessarily successful. But when we see something successful, we take all the glory. We forget who got us to that place. We forget that God helped us to meet those expectations, that God gave us the provision to get to the expectation. And so when it's a positive thing, we're quick to give over take onus of it and to own that thing. But when it's a failure, we quick to internalize and say, you know what, it was all my fault. I'm so broken. I'm so unsuccessful. But we begin to say that's a part of our character. It's not a part of your character. It's just a part of your journey. And so tonight, I really, really wanted to try to free you ladies from that sense that failure is a part of who you are. It's not who you are. I don't know who this is for tonight, but it's not who you are. It's just a part of your journey. And if you take that and you spin it and you give it that positive energy and you say, you know what, I'm not the mistake that I made, but I do learn from this mistake and I'm going to catapult myself into a new dimension because of the mistake. When I think about how I felt when I initially realized that my marriage was going to end, I felt like a true failure. I felt like I was failing not only my family, but most importantly, myself and my children. I felt like I was failing as a parent, that I wasn't able to keep my marriage together. And I began to internalize that. And it wasn't until I got freedom over that failure that I could begin to heal and move forward. So I'm just here to encourage. I don't know what that sense of failure feels like to you. I don't know what that failure is in your life, what you perceive as a failure. But if you can take that thing and you can birth something positive out of it, or you can change your momentum and change your perspective, I promise you, you'll be a better person for it. I can tell you right now, the book that's behind me was birthed out of my sense of feeling like a failure. If it wasn't for me writing in my journal, if it wasn't for me, talking to my sisters and going through things, hey Naja, if it wasn't for me doing those things, this would not have changed a couple of lives. It would not have changed other women. It would not have encouraged people to self-reflect and to heal from things that they didn't even know were wounds. So all I'm saying to you is that you are not your failure. You're the head and you're not the tail. You can conquer anything that you set your mind to. And you don't need to internalize that failure. Be free, sis. Be free from those things that have burdened you. If you're struggling with financial freedom, and trust me, I can understand. If you're struggling in that area, then guess what? It's time for you to get connected, to get freedom over that thing. It's time for you to get connected and to learn things that are going to free you from that sense of failure. So it's one thing to recognize an area in which you can improve. It's another thing to take the steps and the practical application of the principles that you receive to do that. So all I'm saying tonight is that I pray that each of you are free from your sense of failure, that are free from your brokenness, that you can become free. Because in freedom, I remember that sense of freedom that I had when I stepped on that college campus. I remember the sense of freedom that I had when I drove a car away from my parents' home without them in the car. I remember the sense of freedom that I had when I graduated from college and I was headed on to the next destination. I remember the sense of freedom that I had when I lived in my own place. I remember every single one of those, and I want you to feel just as free in your deliverance from failure. Because failure, guess what, is really not failure. We use that dense word to talk about the things where we have made a mistake. It's just a mistake. It's just a mistake. If we could normalize the fact that and be authentic in who we are. I think social media sometimes, it's such a great platform, but at the same time, we are inundated with images of perfection, which don't actually exist. And then we sit there, we're swiping up and down, scrolling left and right, and we feel insufficient. We feel like a failure. My friend was comparing herself. What was she getting her comparison from? She clearly was looking at her own personal journey and comparing it to other people, comparing it to false images that we see on the screen. So all I'm saying is I hope that you would be free from that sense of failure, that you would be free from, feeling like you're inadequate, like you're insufficient, that you would not internalize that sense of failure, and that you would then change that momentum and flip that thing to a positive and utilize it as a sounding board, as a trampoline to throw you into the next dimension. So I hope that you would be so kind to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Each of the posts will start to go up on YouTube as well. Please feel free to share it with individuals who you feel would benefit from it. And I hope that each of you have an amazing, amazing week, and that you have true freedom from failure. I love you. Good night.